All right, let's get into a story about art, ambition, and a kind of exclusive access that's almost impossible to even wrap your head around today. You know the feeling, right? You click a link and bam, 403 forbidden. The door's locked. You don't have permission. But just imagine for a second that this isn't some web page. What if it was an entire world? A world of unbelievable power hidden behind that wall.
And what if the gatekeeper wasn't a server, but a king? And the key wasn't a password, but a paintbrush? Well, that's exactly where our story begins.
We're stepping into the world of Diego Velázquez, an artist whose whole career was built on this very idea, a forbidden gaze that only he was allowed to have. I mean, really think about what that means. In the super formal, incredibly strict court of King Philip IV of Spain, the king's image was locked down. Only one artist was ever allowed to paint him, Velázquez. This wasn't just a job, it was an exclusive privilege. It was a unique kind of power. But for Velázquez, just having artistic access, that wasn't the endgame, not even close. He was driven by something more, a powerful, deeply personal ambition that would define his entire life and his art. 40 years. Just let that sink in. For almost 4 decades, Velázquez was the king's official court painter. This wasn't a short-term gig, this was his life's work, a long game played at the absolute center of Spanish power. Now here's where it gets really interesting. This slide shows the huge social hurdle Velázquez was trying to jump over. See, in his time, painters were seen as craftsmen. Yeah, they were skilled, but they were still considered laborers, people who worked with their hands. Velázquez, though, he wanted to be a knight, a nobleman. It was a massive leap from craftsman to aristocrat.
And he wasn't aiming low either. He was shooting for the absolute pinnacle, the Order of Santiago. This was one of the most exclusive, most prestigious orders in all of Spain. It was for the highest nobility only, and they had a very simple rule. They did not let in people who, got their hands dirty with paint for a living.
So you've got to ask, right? Does this burning desire for status actually show up in his work? Did his ambition for a noble title somehow fuel his artistic genius? Let's take a closer look at the canvas. And this brings us to the revolution he started, not in the court, but right there on the canvas itself, with his totally groundbreaking techniques. He was a master of a technique called alla prima, which is Italian for at first attempt. Basically, it means he worked fast, applying wet paint directly onto other wet paint, often without any detailed sketches underneath. It gave his work this incredible immediacy, this feeling like it's alive. And this shows you just how different his whole vibe was. The traditional way was slow, careful, lots of detailed sketches, layer after layer of thin paint. Velázquez, he just went for it. Bold, free brushstrokes. It feels so confident, so direct, like he's capturing a split second in time. And the amazing thing is, he created this stunning realism with a surprisingly limited range of colors. He was a master of these earthy tones, deep blacks, and an incredible variety of complex grays. He didn't need a riot of color to build a world. His power was all in the subtlety. But beyond his technique, he painted the truth. So many court painters just buttered everyone up, flattery. Velázquez didn't play that game. He painted people with this profound psychological honesty, and this is huge. He gave that same dignity to everyone in the court, from the king himself to the court jesters and dwarves. And there is no better example of this than the story of Juan de Pareja. Now, Pareja was Velázquez's assistant, and he was also his slave. But Velázquez saw his talent, taught him how to paint in secret, and then did something almost unheard of at the time. He granted him his freedom. And the portrait Velázquez painted of his assistant is considered an absolute masterpiece. I mean, it's praised as one of the most powerful and truthful portraits in all of art history. It's not a painting of a slave, it's a painting of a proud, dignified man. Okay, so we've got the forbidden access, the noble ambition, and the revolutionary technique. Now let's see how all these pieces come together in his magnum opus. It all comes to a head right here, in maybe his most famous and most mysterious painting, Las Meninas. This one canvas is basically a summary of his entire life, his position in the court, his whole artistic philosophy, and that personal ambition. It's all in there. It's one of those paintings that just asks more questions than it answers. We see the young princess, her maids of honor, and hey, there's Velázquez himself standing at a giant easel. But if you look really close at the mirror in the back, you can see the reflection of the king and queen. So, who's the real subject here? The people in the room or the royal couple whose viewpoint we, the viewer, seem to be sharing? And this is where the story hits its unbelievable climax. He paints himself into this royal scene in 1656. 3 years later, his life's dream comes true. He's finally admitted into the Order of Santiago. He died just a year after that. But the story has one final, incredible twist. That red cross of the order you see on his chest in the painting? Legend says that after Velázquez died, the king himself, his friend and patron, personally painted it onto the canvas. A final royal brushstroke, cementing his painter's status forever. His legacy was secure. Centuries later, modern artists would just look back at his work completely in awe. The French master Edouard Manet, who led his own artistic revolution, paid him the ultimate compliment, calling him simply the painter of painters. Which leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? For Velázquez, his art and his ambition were totally intertwined. He painted his way to nobility. So what's the truer measure of his life? The immortal masterpieces he left for us, or the noble status that he fought so hard to achieve in his own time?